Hey there, Jim Gavigan, Industrial Insight. I'm out here at the beautiful Bayard Conservation Area just west of the St. Johns River over in Clay County, Florida, and decided to go for a little walk to try to tell this story and shoot this video. May not have been a good decision, so you'll just have to put up with me for that. But this is actually a really special day, and that is because Industrial Insight is 5 years old today. Wow, it's kind of hard for me to believe I just uttered those words, that Industrial Insight is 5. But we are. And I'm going to talk about a couple things today. One, it's kind of a little bit of a year in review. I'm going to thank a bunch of people who've made this possible. And then number 3, I'm going to talk about some challenges that I see going forward just in the marketplace, and some of the things that I think you'll see coming with us. And there'll be more videos about that, but want to at least kind of start talking about it here. I think it's an appropriate time. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is actually this has been probably one of the toughest years that I've had. Actually, probably the second toughest year outside the first one. Why would you, and as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought we'd be rolling by now and everything would be just peachy. But actually, this year was a challenge. And the biggest reason why it was a challenge was there was a couple of projects we thought, we were in line to get. We thought we'd be a great fit for. And we didn't get them. I had my first employee turnover. Eric Belaski left us, back in, I guess it was September. The customer he was supporting had a rule where if you were working there for a couple of years as a contractor, you either had to get fired or get hired. And they certainly weren't going to lose Eric. Eric's incredible at what he does, and he's a great human being. So they weren't going to lose him. So it was just kind of unfortunate circumstances, but still, it was a blow. It hurts. You kind of hope things are going to continue along because he was doing such a great job and he was a great fit with what we were doing. But it made sense for both the customer and him to pursue that particular opportunity. But definitely presented a little challenge here at the end of the year. So that's kind of the year in review. A lot of good things happened this year. We picked up some new customers. We have some customers we're about to expand with. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. But, it's not all, negative by any stretch. But definitely was some challenge this year for sure. First of all, I want to thank some people. First person I want to thank is God himself, because he really provided the way to make any of this possible. And he is the great provider and has provided me everything. So I definitely cannot say thank you without thanking him. I wouldn't be true to myself or true to you. Second of all, Christina, my wife, she's been my biggest cheerleader through all this. And there have been some really difficult times, especially early on, where we easily could have folded up. And she encouraged me to keep going. And she's been my biggest cheerleader. So I thank her a lot. Now, being a small business, I have to have a good extended team. I can't have, internal teams to do certain functions. So I'd like to thank some people who are really experts at what they do, who have helped me tremendously. I have my list here. I'm going to try to continue to look at the camera, but I'm probably going to have to glance down at that list just so I don't forget anybody. First I'd like to thank Bridget Van Landingham and Christy Tostovan over at Business Solutions Unlimited. Bridget, you've been, a mentor and have given me some great advice over the years, helped me find a new accountant, which I'm about to mention here in a minute. Christy, thank you for keeping the books straight and, keeping me sane, with all of that. Much appreciated. You guys really look out after me. Cody Vincent, who is our accountant at Essential Advisors, who just came aboard this year in June. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your help so far. It's been great. Marcus Young and his team at Edward Jones. Man, your friendship and your mentorship and your advice have been huge for me over the last several years, and I appreciate you believing in me. It makes a lot of difference. Told you I wasn't going to be able to not look at this list. Benetrends, who has administered our Rob's plan, Rollover for Business Startup, and kept me compliant with the IRS and kept them out of my hair. Thank goodness. Rich Brooks at St. Augustine Law, thank you for being, just such a down-to-earth person. He's a former business owner, and he's our legal counsel. And so I really thank Rich for just a no-nonsense approach to that. He tells me what the risks are without giving me too much flowery language. So, and I love that about you, Rich. I really, really do. Dave Griffith, who has helped me. You guys have seen him, help me with the marketing piece of things that I'm doing. Mary Schneider over at Fletcher and Company, who has gone above and beyond numerous times for our insurance needs. Jerry Ray, who helps us with our IT functions, helps, kind of help us keep things straight on the IT side. And we've got a couple of development servers that we've commissioned that we basically rent rack space from him. He's got some rack space in a data center, and he's going to continue to help us with IT needs as we grow. And Scott Mitchell with Blackford Associates, who has helped us with our insurance, health insurance for all of us. And so that's a huge help, Scott. Thank you for being there for us on that. So a couple of special thank yous, not necessarily on the team per se, but they're just people who have really, I've been able to bounce ideas off of and who have mentored me a little bit and just have been there when I needed it. And one's John Antony's at Envoy Development. Man, you have been there to answer the call, for the last 5 years. I hate that we haven't done more together because I still think there's a tremendous opportunity. But man, just thank you for being a good friend and mentor and giving me good advice over the years. And the second one's Martin Davis. Thank you for the same. You've been absolutely great to just kind of bounce ideas off of and run things across your desk. So I appreciate that. Anyway, so that's all the thank yous. So now let's talk about kind of what I see going in the future. So I'm watching the video back and doing the editing and realized that I never thanked two people who make a lot of this go, and that's Ben Still and Tia Eberline. The reality is I wanted to thank people outside the company that I typically have not thanked in these kind of anniversary videos, but I thought I was remiss if I didn't thank those two, because without them, none of this also would be possible. They're the ones who help make this go and work with me, not for me, but with me. And so you too, Ben, Tia, I know I tell you all the time on Teams and when we talk how much I appreciate you, but I just want the public to see it as well. They are tremendously appreciated. Anyway, back to the video. So I was actually a little remiss. I forgot to thank some people when I was down below. I'm actually up in an observation tower now, which is a place that I've come a couple of times in the past year or two just to think. It's one of those places where, as you can see, I'm going to show you a little bit of B-roll that I shot. I can kind of look out around and look at kind of the landscape of what's around me. And sometimes I come to think about that kind of process, right? I'm literally trying to see like what's coming next. Maybe where we need to go. Maybe I've had some personal issues or something like that, family. I do have 2 teenagers in my house, so that's always a little bit tricky. So, it's been a couple of times I've come here to just think and be with God, be alone with Him. But, like I said, I really need to thank customers and partners who have really made what we do possible. And speaking of customers, Marcus, who does our IRAs and 401ks and financial advice for our company, he told me several years ago, he said, Jim, he goes, there's going to be a customer or two that are going to come to you and say, hey, we really need you and we need you to scale up for us. And you're going to have to think about how you would do that. That hasn't happened yet. And I think privately I was kind of thinking this would be the year that someone would do that. Didn't happen. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 5 years from now. I don't know. Doesn't really matter, actually. But one thing he asked me not that long ago, a couple weeks ago, is he said, Jim, what does your ideal customer look like? Because I was lamenting a couple of the losses we had this year. And he really made me think about that. And I'm putting more thought into it, but I'm going to give you my initial impressions, let's just say. I'm going to start with someone who mentored me many years ago, who I still have a tremendous amount of respect for, and he may not like me very much, but I still respect the heck out of him. And like him, actually. I'll actually like him a lot, and that's Larry Bailey of Logical Systems. I'll never forget what he told me about when he was telling me what a good customer would look like for LSI. And he basically said, Jim, he goes, we need companies that are well managed, who have capital money and a plan to spend it. And number 3, who value a partner. And those 3 things were incredibly important to him. Interestingly enough, those things are somewhat, 2 of those 3 are really important for us too. One is, it has to be a well-managed company. Otherwise, what we're going to do isn't going to go very far. Number 2, or the third point, is valuing a partnership. That has to be key. And a couple of those companies that I think we lost to, I'm not sure really value a partner like I would want them to. And maybe they just didn't value us as a partner. You know, that happens, right? So those 2 things are really important. Capital money, I'm going to address that here in a few minutes with what I think I see coming. But I think one of the real keys for us as well is that from management down, people are sick of doing things the same old way. Really from the top all the way down to the shop floor, plant floor, you know, whatever that looks like for that particular customer, that particular division of a customer. They're just sick of how they've been doing things. And they want to change. And they want to use data to help them change. And they're willing to kind of buck the trends and buck the system a little bit and really say, you know what, we need to change. We need to do something different. And we're a little rebellious about that. We're going to make it happen. And I think that's going to be a really key component for us going forward, is we have to find companies that aren't stuck in their old ways. And it could be a big company. It could be a smaller company. Who knows? You know, that's one thing that I don't really put a lot of stock in. I just need companies or divisions who want to change, and they have the horsepower to actually make it happen. The people actually want to go make it happen, and management wants it to happen, and they'll facilitate it. So that's some key components, I think, for us. And you're going to hear more from me on that. I think that's one thing that I'm going to do a little bit early next year, is talk about, hey, if you're thinking about becoming a customer of ours, here's some things to think about. And it gives us some things to think about when we're evaluating you as a potential customer. If you happen to be watching this, I mean, there's all kinds of people that watch these videos. But if you do happen to be a potential customer, you know what? We have to kind of look at you too and see if you're a good fit for where we're going and what we're thinking. Because what we've found is not everyone is. So there'll be more to come on that. But I at least wanted to broach that subject now. All right, so back to Larry's point on capital money. I actually don't think that's really critical for us. Actually, I'm kind of hoping companies don't have a lot of capital money to spend, and maybe they're kind of having to make use of what they already own, because most of the time we hit an expense budget anyway. You know, if you're doing a project with us, it's going to hit an expense budget. Very rarely is it a capital budget. So for us, you know, having capital money really probably doesn't matter as much as you have money set aside to make the necessary changes that you need to make by using data and using data to drive your business. That's really critical for us. No question about it. So let's talk about that for 2022 and 2023, because here we are early December of 21. Here's what I see in the market, and I could be wrong. I'm not a financial guru by any stretch. But just the logical part of me is looking at what's going on globally and in the U.S. You know, obviously COVID has made pretty major impacts to markets around the world, to countries around the world, to governments around the world. A lot of stuff that shouldn't have been politicized has gotten politicized, right? But one of the things that I see, especially in this country, and there's other countries doing it too, it's not just here, is that here we're printing a lot of money, trying to bail out people and companies. That's going to catch up to us. The reality is the more money supply that is out there, the less value our dollars are worth. So that means we have inflation, and they've been talking about it. I don't think it's necessarily transitory. I think it's here for a while until they get some of the money back out of the market. I think it's going to be here. I think there's some markets around the world, primarily it's some of the things I've been seeing about China and their housing market, very much a bubble right now. And you start to see China, which is one of the major economies of the world, struggle because their housing market's going down. I think it's going to ripple over here too. So what I think we're in for some tough times the next couple of years. I really, truly do. So I think that's going to affect capital markets and what people put out for capital, for equipment, for new plants, new lines, new capabilities. I think companies are going to kind of rein it in a little bit. I think that's an advantage for us. I have thought since I opened this business in December of 2016 that a down economy where companies are having to make the most of their assets as they stand would actually be a huge advantage for us. Probably going to test that theory here in the next year or two. But I really believe that if companies have a ton of capital money and they have capacity constraints or throughput issues or quality issues, they can throw capital money at it with new equipment, new people, new plants. You know, they can kind of cover it up a little bit because it's a lesser path of resistance to a certain degree, right? I don't think companies are going to be able to do that as much here in the next couple years. I think it's going to be a lot more challenging for a lot of them to be able to do that. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to have to make the most of what they make and what they have. And I think that's where companies like ours is going to be incredibly important in this market coming up. And I'm going to talk more about that as time goes on. I think you're going to see a little bit of a tone change and a little bit of a content change in some of the things that I put out. It's not going to be all technical. Now, obviously, these first 3 to 5 years that I've been doing this, obviously when I first started, is I'm trying to gain credibility, right? Technical credibility that, hey, I actually know what I'm doing. Because think about it. When I started back doing technical work, I had come out of sales. I had not ever really done a lot of data work with the Pi system and other, like data historians. So I had to prove to people that, hey, I actually know what I'm doing. I can see the solutions and I can build them for you. And that my people can, right? So a lot of the early content was really built around the technical. But I think we're going to see a little shift in that for a while because I think the business and how the climate is changing is going to force me to look at some things different. And the reality is companies are building brands and building trust because they're sharing knowledge, they're sharing information, they're sharing what they see. And I think in a lot of cases, what's happening is companies and people are coming to them and saying, you know what, I already know you. I know how you think. I know what you're about. I want to do business with you because I trust you and I trust what you're saying and I trust your expertise. So part of that is why I did a lot of the technical stuff to begin with. And now I'm going to start talking about, okay, well, if you're on that fence, you're here on our YouTube channel or on our website watching this video now, and let's say it's not December 6th, 7th, or 8th of 2021. You're trying to figure out, man, these guys sound pretty great, but do we really want to do business with them? I want you to hear my and our heart on all of these subjects, the things that we believe in, both from a business standpoint, the data stuff, and how we do business, and who we do business with and why. I want you to understand that so that you can start to evaluate that, and then we can use that as a lens that we can use to evaluate you as well. Because the reality I'm finding is there's some really big customers out there, and there's been some really small customers out there that are just a terrible fit for us. Yet we would do, a project or two with that company, and it would go okay. It would go well in a lot of cases, but the reality we found is we didn't fit their corporate culture. We didn't fit where they wanted to go. And I think that's a real key that we've got to evaluate going forward. So you're going to hear more content from me on that. I think we're in for a bumpy couple of years here. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's what's coming. And I think we all have to be prepared for that. So for us, we're preparing to be even better at what we do, learning more tools, understanding how we can fully leverage your time series data to make you better, to make your companies better. That's what we're going to be focused on. We're already really good at it. We're only going to get better, and we're only going to find more tools to make things easier. So that's our commitment to you. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of this and for supporting us. It is much, much appreciated.